We did some scale work as well. We did a little bit of work on reviewing. We did some work on Wish You Were Here, which was mostly review and just playing through it and building your stuff, which is what we'll finish probably this week on week 10. But I also wanted to give you something that this song's in. Now we've moved it up to the key of G. We can now co-opt some of the ideas that we took from Wish You Were Here and put fills in. But obviously, all the work that I talked about, all the stuff I talked about in the problems about getting the chord lines under your fingers and getting the contour of the chord lines. All that work has to be done really before you can start thinking about putting these fills in. But you can still use them to practice your scales and stuff, you know. Take it out of the song and just play a G chord and see how. Because the one that I did was just giving you a simple idea to lead into any G chord in this song. Is just a simple run down the scale. Just a simple scale. And again, I'm trying to talk about the principles of whenever you hear a fill or a line, once you know what the scale is, which is you've got G pentatonic, major pentatonic. And hopefully you know that scale pattern now. What you just say, well, what's the start note and what's the direction? And the start note on this one is. So it's one note down from home. There's home in the middle of the scale. So we go down to in a descent to our start note, and then the actual fill is just stepwise down the scale to the low home. Beyond that, what you do there is, okay, I don't quite get that. I can't quite see what finger he's playing, what fret he's playing. You might have a bit of detective work. I'm not going to, I think telegraphing this stuff sometimes just takes it too long and overload, causes other problems. But you get find the start note with your ear or your fingers or however, run down the scale just stepwise and see how close the run that I'm going to put in the song and that I've demonstrated there is it's basically the same as a simple scale one, and it's not that far away from some of the elements of the scales, the fills that you play in Wish You Were Here. So, and then it's just a case of where it goes in. So it's like I said on any G. Some places it's not so good, but it broadly works out on any leading into any G. So. That's me just not thinking about the chord lines. And again, you see, it's like you've got to have the chord line present, and you've also got to think on top of all the stuff about where are you in the song, where's the tricky C minor going onto the long D. You've also got to think, well, where can I put this fill in now? One of the things I'd recommend is obviously at the end of the verse you're on a long period on D where you can decompress. And when the song takes off into the next verse, it's a G chord. So, the end of the verse, put the fill in to signify the start of the next verse. There's a place where you go, you got a lot of nerve to say you are my friend. It's hard to get one in there. To say you are my friend. To say you are my friend. To say you are my friend. Doable, but it's a tricky one. It's tricky to execute and it's not very musical or good anyway. But after you got say you are my friend, into the second to line 3, where the chord rate changes up, you're already on G, and you're on G. When you break from line 2 to line 3, you're still on G. So you could put a fill to run into line 3. So you'd be like this, you got a lot of love, say you are my friend. So if I can get my first note. You got a lot of love, say you are my friend. Admitted it'll get monotonous if you keep putting it in every time, but it's one fill. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day, so you wouldn't put in every time in it. You know, just. But you'll find that if you make them, you might go. There's other things. You start on the wrong note. If you start on the wrong note instead of here, there's not a right or wrong note, but wrong note for that phrase. You start here, you still got to get to here at the same time, so you've just got to squeeze the notes in. That's just home to home, or you can go grinning, grinning. Shorter run, starts a bit later, or grinning. You can change direction, grinning. All kinds of things, but the one's good enough to start off with. So yeah, and the last thing to say about that, which I haven't said, I'll probably go over this on Thursday for the last session. But you go back to the original recording. Playing the wrong note. So essentially what I'm saying is when you grinning, whatever the note is, you can actually put the intro fill that you hear at the start in the intro at the top of the song is what you're using to connect verses, but dropping it down 2 octaves. Or so you can play the same run and you can play with different timing. Yeah, it's the same notes, it's just timing it differently. I'll just show you what that's like. So he goes. And then you go, just it's really hard to shift your timing when you think about it. The one that comes out is the one that comes out when you do it, but you can't pick. That's what it's when you learn to play something, something as a piece. For instance, not so much a riff, but if it's like you have to put a little fragment into a particular place in a song, and you want, if that was going to be my fill after verse 2 in this song, it's much, much, much harder to call that exact fill unless you've done it tons and tons of times, than to just call on any old fill that runs into the G. Because if I might go, I did one wrong, I went something like a couple of examples ago, and because as long as it's in time and it's using the correct notes, it'll work. But somebody will say, "Oh, you didn't play where it should have been because that's the way it was on the record." It's a whole other area of control to be able to do that. And I think sometimes you think everything that you see people playing is at that level of control, but it's not. It's like you want to fill, you've got a certain period of time to put it in, and it's just you pick your start note, and then you play something in time, and hopefully you end up there. That's why start note and direction. Pick your start note, pick your direction, and then just do it. When you first start doing it, you'll have months. It'll probably take a year, maybe a year. But it's not like all of a sudden it comes after a year, but you have to keep plugging away, till you build up that understanding of how to fill time, little fragments of time, and the understanding is in your fingers and in your ear. You can't verbalise it, which is why it's taken me 25 years of doing guitar class to get to this level of detail, to be able to communicate extremely complex things in at least a communicable way. You might think I'm using a lot of words, and I do, but it's got us much closer to you handling much more tricky concepts than you naturally would be able to do. Anyway, that's more than enough. It was just a little addendum there about the fills, and hopefully you find it useful.